cross pin. Now, starting off, we have our first exhibition match, which is Team Galaxy versus Team D.A.W.N. And with me today, I have my co-hosts, and I have people here to break down how we think and feel this fight's gonna go down. Hey guys, thanks for making it.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Let's see. Now, looking at the brackets, I can see that we have a lot of interesting fights up. For those of you watching, brackets will be on the screen right about now. As you can see, the things have changed a little bit. We are going to be doing 2 rounds of 4v4, 1 round of 2v2, and then 2 rounds of 1v1. So it's a little bit different than the videos that I will explain in. Those were more just informational panels. But yes, we are starting off with Galaxy versus D.A.W.N. So let's get into it, guys. Starting off with Galaxy. Galaxy, a team that started off as friends because their parents were a team in Atlas, Team Space. And they had the highest grade at Atlas Academy. And it looks like that they went through a very harsh time. Their parents all died the same night. So when they met up again, it was pretty confusing to them all. But I wouldn't say that we should give them the leeway. They are a team to be reckoned with. But let's get down into breaking them down. So first off, what we're breaking down is Albert Galaxy. Albert, which should appear on the screen right now, and his stats will be right next to him, is, he's ambidextrous, which is really good in a fight, I would say. But his main personality is he doesn't really care about what goes on around him because he's been living with chance his entire life. So he really just goes with the flow, and what happens, which I think in a fight is a little dangerous. What do you guys think?
I feel like that could definitely be a weakness if he doesn't really pay much attention and just kind of lets things happen. I feel like that could definitely work against him.
I agree. Over-reliance on chance is going to be a serious problem for him, especially if he's listed as overconfident, especially if he's his team's leader.
Right.
Oh, definitely. It could definitely just be pulled against him.
Yeah.
And the idea of working with chance, it's a double-edged sword, because especially when it comes to chance, there's always a chance that you lose. It's like good and bad luck. You can't exactly guarantee what's going to happen.
Yeah, the randomness of everything involved is going to be, well, rather impractical, I think. A bit of a high-risk, high-reward situation.
Okay. Now, continuing on, we know that, according to his bio work, that his semblance is really, really dangerous because his semblance is based off of chance, which means that he doesn't really know the outcome of any of his attacks. But he can, though, with his semblance, his opponents are also at a disadvantage too. I mean, they're both at advantages and disadvantages. I feel like if he plays his semblance during the beginning of the fight, I can see it not working well. But then again, his semblance makes the playing field infinite possibilities.
Oh, it does. I happen to think it's a huge advantage if it works, but if it doesn't, it backfires terribly.
It would all really depend upon how the dice roll, if you will.
Yep, and according to this, it does look like dice are embedded with dust. And it looks like that each dot of the dice is a different dust type. Now, looking at his weapon, which will appear on screen right now, you can see that he has multiple types of dust. It looks like he does have fire, he does have hard light, he does have water, which will be really interesting. He does have plant, he does have earth, he has lightning, he has rock, and he has wind. So, in the center, he does have gravity. So it does look like this weapon does have a lot of possibilities to it. but depending on where it lands in the
I'm
field.
not sure I understand how the dice, actually apply the dust capabilities.
So according to the breakdown, the dice has certain pressure mechanisms depending on what side it lands on, and those push the pistons for the certain types of dust, which I think is a really cool mechanic. I mean, you roll it, whatever side it lands on is pressure plate sensitive, and then an effect happens. I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, but the effect it actually provides.
So the effect it seems that it provides is it's a multiple combinations. I mean, if on one side it lands and 3 plates are hit, that can be a combination of any of the things. That could be lightning, fire, and plant, or that could be wind, water, and fire. Like there's multiple dust capabilities that can come out.
Mm-hmm.
It seems interesting, but it is one of those things where it's like it would work really well and could turn the tide of battle if it works in his favor. If it doesn't, if he lands on a dust type he doesn't like or wasn't aiming for, it could just throw the whole plan off.
Right, the randomization mechanic, it makes him unpredictable, sure, but it also makes him unpredictable to himself, so it's going to be really hard to actually plan anything.
But I mean, according to how his living situation is, it looks like he's prepared for that. Now, I could see if he wasn't prepared for it, and he was like still new to everything and whatnot. But I think.
I mean, even if he's aware of his stuff not always going to work the way he wants, it would still be a detriment if it didn't go the way he wanted. Because sure, he would be able to maybe improvise on the spot to come up with something, but it wouldn't be what he had originally been going for, so it may not be as effective.
Right, not every combination is applicable to every situation the same way. So it's going to be very hard to coordinate what he actually wants to happen with what actually does happen. So,
which is interesting.
Well,
it's interesting for sure.
Look at the next character because she seems interesting, and I think she could be the balance between with Albert,
the linchpin.
All right.
So looking at her name, it's Emerald, and she's overconfident. But
all of them are overconfident.
They're all overconfident.
But overconfident in your abilities, I mean, is a little, I would say, is not something you want to get into in the heat of the battle. I mean, obviously, she will be appearing on the screen right now, but I like her semblance, which is cool. It's called the butterfly effect, which is a really nice twist on, what she's based off of. But this is cool because she basically can predict the outcomes of small changes, which I feel like works well with Albert's semblances, because if she can kind of predict what the dice will roll on, then they can coordinate going forward through the battle. I think this is a really nice support to his semblance, definitely.
Well, I don't feel like that would work, at least with the case in the dice, because reading through the semblance, it's the outcome of small changes of anything that she uses in her surroundings. So it wouldn't really be able to predict the dice because she's not using it.
Exactly. It specifically states that this semblance doesn't account for outside interference. So anything her teammates do, and for example, the dice he throws, either she's going to not be able to predict the outcomes of that, or she's going to have to do some lightning fast calculations.
I mean, if she was able to do that, it would be quite good, but I doubt it. How old are these kids?
She's stated as intelligent, so I assume she's
they're
a quick
28.
thinker.
Okay, so these are like pro huntsmen. Okay.
Yeah, I have to say that it's very significant. It's very significant in this matchup that Team Galaxy has 11 to 14 years of experience and age over Team D.A.W.N. And since we balanced everything out so that no participant is, a prodigy, such as our main cast on the show, this age margin is going to be a very significant difference in skill. So that's a solid point in Team Galaxy's column, actually.
With that, then up next is her weapons. These look pretty frickin' badass. These are bad. These look pretty cool.
Butterfly knives, eh?
So there's this person. I was on DeviantArt the other day, And these, I mean, he does a lot of cool designs, but like these are what I base her. It's why they're called the rainbow, because like.
Oh, that's a bit of a misnomer then in the description, because these are not butterfly knives. The butterfly knife is like that folding design that you have to be really quick with your fingers to use properly.
That looks just really fun to spin.
Right. And that you will cut yourself if you're not careful, take it from me.
Well, this is the style. Well, it looks like this is more of the style of it, not really like how it looks. But I mean, the styles are still cool. I mean,
so these are basically, attached fan-shaped daggers.
Yeah.
Right.
Could they be considered like kunai?
Sort of, yeah. That's the overall design of the blade, sure.
But I think
it could definitely.
Cool. So,
it could definitely be interesting to see how it works, especially with her semblance in play.
Oh, right.
Because using them precisely with her semblance could really allow her to make a lot of effects with one small move by just setting up this chain of events.
If she throws them at something and well, it's her actions, so she should be able to calculate their outcome using her semblance. This could be used to manipulate particular environments in a huge way.
Yeah, it could
especially with the dust added in.
It could definitely turn the tide of battle.
Right.
Especially if they can be retrieved after throwing.
Yeah, so it looks
which,
like,
to be fair,
it looks like they have gravity dust implanted, and she wears She wears bracelets on her hand bracelets with gravity stones in them to retract each dagger. So I think daggers knives are her specialty with her semblance on this. I mean, that's actually that's deadly. I could see that.
It is, but I feel like it's especially deadly in very close range if she knows what she's doing. But she's going to have to be very quick to use these properly.
Yeah.
Right.
But they have the experience they have the years of experience, so I could totally see it working on this point in case.
True.
So, going up next on Galaxy, we have Xavier G. Ginger. Ooh. And he is our first Faunus of the tournament that we're talking about. So, let's get into this. We have our first Faunus, everybody.
Huzzah! In Atlas, no less.
So, it looks like he is a lamb, sheep, ram Faunus.
So sheep.
But, yeah. And his weakness is timid, and he doesn't like wolves. This is going to be a funny... I could see this being a funny matchup between...
Wait, so he's timid, but he's also overconfident?
Yeah, exactly. How does that work?
So...
You made... What? All of them are overconfident for some reason.
You can be overconfident, but, like, if some... I feel like what this means is you can be overconfident, but, like, if someone, like, points it out, you get shy really, really, really fast. Like it's sort of like...
All right, so with this guy's personality, I feel like he's going to be preferring to keep his distance.
Oh, definitely. Going on to his distance, he actually has... his distance came with... which is what activate... his distance was a major part in play on his personality, actually, and his backstory. Because he didn't learn to speak up for himself, so he would always be away from the other kids in school. So it was really hard for him when he was in the academy to kind of open up a bit. With that, looking at his semblance, which is called Space Lapse, which basically allows him to use gravity portals. So we basically have the portal gun, everybody. He has the portal gun as his semblance, which I think is...
Right. I'm not exactly sure what you mean specifically by gravity portals. It just opens wormholes, doesn't it? Okay, so maybe gravity in the sense that it just pulls objects specifically to him?
Yeah.
Alright, gotcha.
But yeah, which is cool because, I mean, if you take his semblance with Emerald's daggers and her predictions, and then you I mean, they could be a solid team by themselves.
Well, they would if we forgot that Emerald couldn't predict things that other people are acting upon.
Right. That's why it would probably be Portal.
That's a problem.
Right. Yeah.
But I will say that he is going to have major crowd control capabilities, and well, just superb control over the battlefield in general.
Yeah,
and just nullify the moment somebody's disarmed.
He would definitely be the support person. I
True.
can see that.
So if he could coordinate with his team, it would definitely make for a game changer with the semblance. The weapon is interesting as well, though.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it is.
The very good thing about whips, what makes them particularly useful, is that they're very hard to defend against because they can bend over most blocks, parries, and shields.
Right, yeah.
This one in particular, well, it seems like its tip is a bit bulky, but it has dust in it, so it's going to be a hell of a thing if it lands a hit. So in mid to long range, it's going to be devastating.
Right, and
in close range, though,
watching, his weapon is called Ares Faith, which is a small rod whip that can retract and detach, letting a longer length of whip with a headpiece that can have dust added to it to infuse it with dust properties. So I think that this is a really overall. So far, this team fits its team name. I mean, let's look at that first. I mean, they have most of the members do fit their team name. I mean, when you think
we can definitely see what the theming was.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like that's a point on them. That is definitely.
I don't feel like fitting the team name is a point towards winning a fight.
So then we have up next, the last character is Blossom Young. She should be appearing on the screen right now.
She's also overconfident.
And she is our first lesbian.
Yes, because that's significant when trying to win a fight. Thank you for pointing that out.
Wonderful.
I mean, she is a Pisces, which, I mean, is... I feel like if you're battling a Pisces on the battlefield, or, like, working alongside one...
What
like,
does that have to do with anything?
Well, Pisces are, like... if you break, like, trust or, like, do something wrong, like, she'll get back at you. Like, she will not regret, like, what she does to you.
I feel like we call that... revenge?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's just pettiness and grudge holding.
Yeah. But her semblance actually could be what pulls this team together, which is called Rainbow Barrier, which means that she can manipulate hard like dust into a shield or barrier the size she wants. And she uses more aura for bigger shields. But it also looks like the different barriers or shields can become platforms or other means of walking above ground or in midair.
So, if I understand this correctly, this basically comes down to her not needing a special mechanism to manipulate hard light dust into the form or size of shield that she needs at the time, plus
she can use the semblance for it.
Huge mobility advantage with the platforms. And since she also seems to have the most accomplished ranged capabilities of the entire team, this is going to be a significant advantage.
Right, and it does look like that the more complex the shape is, so I'm guessing the more sides she tries to have, it takes more concentration, which makes sense. I mean, if you want to make a 30 frickin' sided shield or like a 20-sided shield, it takes concentration.
I don't really see how that matters all that much. In this case, it's just creating a barrier.
I feel like if there's attacks coming from all sides, she can put up 3 barriers. But then she has to apply how big and what shape do I want the barrier so then I am protective. Because she can make a sphere barrier, which is a 3D polygraphic translucent shield. So I mean, she could definitely make a bubble shield and not, but she would have to know the shapes that she wants to use as the plates for the bubble. So basically, I could see this basically being the bubble shield from RVB, basically.
This mostly comes down to her being the most heavily defense-oriented on a team, and keeping her range most of the time.
Yeah, definitely, I can see that. And then her weapon is a scissors gun lance, which I feel it's pretty big for size.
Well,
I mean,
looking at that image,
I mean, she is 5'9", so it does go a little bit above. It's a little bit higher than her height. So
okay, I'm assuming that when it says it can accommodate different dust cartridges, that the same dust vials inserted into it apply dust effects to the blades and also to the gun, right?
Yes.
So okay. Sort of like between Weiss's rapier and Adam's blade, or no, Raven. So like Raven.
So, yeah, something between Blake and Raven, actually.
Yep.
I see. It also seems a bit of a misnomer to call it a lance, since it's, clearly sword-shaped.
Right.
Well, I feel like it's probably the way it's used. It does appear like it would probably be used for stabbing first rather than slashing. Now, granted, based on its appearance, it probably could be used for slashing as well. But it
gun with a huge bayonet.
That's what I thought as well, just like a really big bayonet. But I mean, where do you draw the line between lance and bayonet?
Have you seen actual lances?
Yes, I have.
They're basically really, really long spears.
If you put a really big lance on the end of a really big gun, is it just a bayonet?
Pretty much, yeah. If it can also slash, because lances don't do that. Anyway, misnomers and nomenclature aside, this is actually looking like a competent and efficient weapon in both long and short range, for a change.
Yeah, definitely.
So
plus her special skills. Now that we got that down, let's look at their special skills only, starting with her, and we'll work our way back up before going to commercial break. Let's see here. So her special skills will make sense is dust particles, but is an advanced aura user, which means that she, over the ages of training, has learned to use her aura in more than one way, which goes really well with her semblance. I would say that out of the four of them, she would probably have the most aura.
I definitely see the, well, now that I'm thinking about it, the semblance and the weapon could actually work quite well together by making, like, shields for whenever they go into gun mode, like create a barrier to have cover and then just peek out from behind that to just,
definitely,
shoot you in the head.
It's basically like crouching behind your SWAT shield.
Pretty much.
With a slot for the gun.
I would say it's more like the shields. I mean, because later on in life, I feel like she could probably will out the shields at will, just like not even thinking if she's in danger, and then the shields will move around her where the gunfire is coming, which I think could be cool over time.
But we're analyzing their capabilities at the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like one interesting question would be, could they create a shield around the weapon, have you ever seen like a Roman tower shield, like something like that in front of her, but like have like a hole for the weapon and just fire out of that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier.
I mean, her abilities is the more complex the shape is, the more concentration she has to put into it. So yeah, it just would take more concentration from my standpoint.
Yeah, that could definitely turn the tide of battle.
Sure.
Now,
I also have a bit of a query. When you say advanced aura user, in which capabilities do you imagine that? Because we know there are a lot of different ways you can use aura, from sensory to defensive to regenerative to offensive, such as what Crow does.
I would say she's mostly a defensive aura advanced user, so she knows how to use
Okay, so basically her cloak
offense.
is really strong and she should be able to recover it quickly.
Yeah.
Alright, that's a very significant advantage.
Now going up to Xavier, his special skills, well, make sense. He is a quantum dust user. And please
what does that mean?
What does that mean exactly?
Really feel like this person's team has a lot of science-related things to it, which I think is cool. But I feel like
like it's a lot of theoretical concepts is what it is.
I feel like this is a lot of...
I feel like Quantum Dust User is just a title saying that, you know, he uses dust in his semblance, and his semblance deals with quantum teleportate. I mean, if he has this
the way it's described seems more like he's opening a wormhole.
Yeah.
Not quantum teleporting. They're very different things.
Yeah, he can open up a wormhole and open up a white hole, and
what?
Well, when you go through a wormhole, you come out a white hole. It's the opposite side of a wormhole. Wormholes are tunnels, basically, in space. For much.
Aren't we?
An advanced fighting combat user. So
yeah, what does that mean? That's so vague.
I'm assuming it just means they're really good at combat.
They're good at they're MMA. They're basically Yang and Yang.
We're talking about the whip wielder here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, I mean, even with whips, I mean, up close range with whips, I mean, you can.
It's going to require a lot of acrobatics to use a whip in close range, like say Sienna does. It's hard.
But,
well, I'm pretty sure even with like a weapon like Sienna's, it's not 20 meters long, which is I think one of the biggest detriments to the weapon is that it is 20 meters long.
Sure, it's going to be very hard to use it properly in a cramped environment, especially if you want to use its ranged capabilities. If
you're in a room, you're pretty screwed.
Like wave attacks and
stuff. They're not in a room. Guys, remember,
I know,
I'm just in a room.
Right.
Saying,
in
like,
this case, the biomes we place them in
the
would...
biome we place them in is the Fire Ice field from Ruby versus Arburn fight, which should be appearing on screen right now for those of you viewing at home. And so
So it's not going to affect them too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. This is pretty open terrain.
I don't think that. I mean, that retracts anti-check. It says letting, so I think that he can actually like control how long it actually goes out. Because it says letting a 20-meter width.
Okay, if it can actually regulate its length, then that's better.
Yeah, so
that's a lot more useful.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's a bit odd that his main thing would appear to be physical strength, and yet he opts for using a whip.
I mean, you could be strong and crack the sound barrier with the whip. I mean, it's possible.
Sure, but a whip in your fighting style would require a lot more, agility and strength.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. For sure.
It's an interesting pick.
I'm not going to fault him for it. I just think but it is interesting for sure.
Now, moving back up, we're on Emerald again, and her special skills is advanced weapon combat user, which
so she just is
like
really good at weapons.
Good with weapons. I mean,
that probably fits for her choice weapons. You probably need a lot of skill with that to be able to use it effectively.
Oh yeah, slick fingers.
Yeah. And then lastly but not least, we are back with Albert Galaxy, the leader of Team Galaxy, and his special skill is Aura Dust User and Perfect Hand-to-Hand Combat.
So, from the way he's described, I'm gathering that his fighting style is going to be somewhere between Yang's and Mercury's,
yes.
Right? Like an equal measure of foot and handwork?
Yes.
I feel like that kind of works with his weapon of choice too.
Yeah.
The nunchucks. Like
you take
a hand-to-hand, foot-to-foot fighting style, and you toss in like one half of Sun's weapon.
Oh yeah.
You just go ham.
I mean, nunchucks are good for mostly misdirection and flashy spinny moves. They're not particularly strong, but they're super fast, so it fits. I think it fits.
Distract the opponent and uppercut them.
Sure.
Definitely. Overall, this team has the potential of actually doing well on this biome field. Now, taking the field into effect with all of this, I mean, I can definitely see probably at the end of the battle, the field is obliterated.
Especially with that bloody whip.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things here that gives them an advantage is the age.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant.
Age and maturity level does play a big part in this.
It's going to. Experience is going to be, I feel, the deciding factor in this matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had to guess in advance.
So
I do feel like the overconfidence thing is going to play to their detriment. It's going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
If they overextend themselves and take too large risks, such as Albert seems to be doing, it's well, I can see it not going well for them.
It's a lot of their victory would be based upon how overconfident they show up to the fight being and how lucky Albert gets.
Right. Like I said, high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially with the opponent they're fighting, they're going to show up expecting to win, and so they're not going to come in trying their best.
I don't think they're going to show up expecting to win. I mean, they're going to definitely be cautious because they are going against children. They're going
against children. What's not to be confident about?
I'm joking. That was a joke. Relax. That was a joke. But anyway, with that being said, we will look at Team D.A.W.N right after the commercial break. And we are back. We are now going to be looking over Team D.A.W.N, and then we will get into the breakdown between the teams of their fighting. So, Team D.A.W.N, let's look at how Team D.A.W.N will play a factor on this biome and against Team G.L.X.Y. So, our first character is Lyall Debrouse, if I said that right. Sorry if I butchered the name.
Lyall Debrouse, I think.
Debrouse, okay. And she is a wolf fawn. So this is gonna probably be, well, I mean, yeah, she's a wolf fawn. So he's a wolf fawn. He's a wolf fawn.
So would that mean that Xavier, isn't it, would be scared of them? That would be it. That's interesting. Would that be a factor in this? Because if so...
No, you can't really tell this guy is a wolf faunus physically. It says there are no external traits.
Right.
Right.
But
I was gonna be like, if there were external traits, that would really change things up.
I think
but his semblance.
Beowulfs, as a matter of fact, of wolves, I think.
Oh, well, you know, if it's a general phobia...
If it was just a general phobia of wolves, the semblance could really change things up.
Oh, let's talk about that one, because I do love this semblance. So, basically, Lyall here has himself a small floating orb that can turn into one of several types of animal companion.
He's the ranger from D&D.
Basically, except it's an aura construct much like Weiss's Summons and Sons clones.
Right.
And it can take one form at a time. They cannot exceed a length of 1.82 meters. And it says here they can turn into a wolf, bear, ram, lynx, eagle, gecko, snake, eel, I'm sorry, that slipped out. And griffin, for some reason?
It does say mythological in there somewhere.
Right, monsters, animals, or mystical creatures that Lyall has made a study of in the past.
And we do know griffins at least exist in the form of Grimm.
Yeah.
They do, but we also know that they're a lot larger than this.
Right, so there's like a scaled-down version.
Could be, yeah.
And it does say that he doesn't know how to make it transform to a griffin himself. It's just kind of something that happens emotionally based.
So
he's an emotion-based fighter then. If his semblance is based on his emotions.
Well, no, the griffin
it's only this one application which, if he loses control, it transforms into a griffin.
Everything else is under
normal
his
animal.
control.
It says here he is resistant to cold thanks to his wolf traits. Somehow.
Now, I actually enjoy the fact that they gave a little explanation of how big the aura pool is and stuff like that for it, because that kind of does affect a lot. And with this one, it's his aura pool is pretty big, but it seems based on how it's described that he uses most of it for his semblance.
Right. He can just keep it sustained
so that does
longer than you would expect. That's what I imagine.
That does mean that So he'd probably be able to use his semblance for quite a while, but that does sacrifice some of the time he could have a defensive capabilities for the for his aura.
Sure, and since this match is, I'm assuming, going until aura break, this is going to be a risk he's taking.
Especially since the thing isn't there to be able to defend him, then that's a direct hit to him and not to the semblance or aura.
Right.
Now, regarding his weapon.
Yes.
I love this weapon, honestly. I've been looking forward to this one.
So Hurricane Hunter, a bow with dust-fitted arrows, which, depending on the different dust crystals inside them, can create different amounts of them somehow. And the bow has bladed limbs and can bend to make a melee form as a sword. So what this reminds me of is Cinder's Midnight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know her weapon was called
with
Midnight.
The added benefit of dust-infused arrows.
Yeah,
but
you seem.
I got the reference now. I got the Midnight reference. God.
It only took you, how long has it been?
A couple years.
6 years?
Well, I mean, I just learned that her weapon was called Midnight. I just learned her weapon was called Midnight, too. I didn't know it had a name.
Yeah,
I was like, why was it? I was sitting here like, why is it called Midnight?
And then it clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the dust arrows, and you said something like you're a little confused to what the different arrows could accomplish. We saw Robin's, and we saw what happened when fire dust is infused with the arrows, i.e., almost aura-breaking explosion that happened in Tyrion's mouth. But if it's used like that, I'd think that if the dust is inside the arrows, it would have a similar effect no matter what it is. So with the fire dust, I can assume it would be an explosion. However, I'd assume it would be an explosion of that specific element. Like if it's electric dust, it could be like an electric.
So it would also be one of those that just explodes on impact, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, for example,
I feel like the weapon works well with his semblance too, because he can use the weapon to keep distance and have the companion fight close range for him.
Right. While this thing is keeping enemies occupied, it's basically like an additional team member.
Right.
While he himself keeps his distance, keeps safe, which seems like something he would be focusing on during the fight. Especially since, if we look at his fighting style, he seems to be like a jack-of-all-trades sort of guy.
Yeah.
I feel like probably the sword fighting would probably be like if he can't like if his aura break, not his aura breaks, but like if he can't hold up the companion without breaking his aura on his own, that he would switch to sword fighting.
Right.
That
or
if someone gets too close to him and he can't shoot him with a bow in time, he can kind of move into sword fighting for a small time until he can make distance between the two.
Right.
Exactly.
And it does look like his weakness is having in an area that has little or no cover or hiding spots. So
yeah, it does look like this biome would probably not be its best in his favor, since it does not have many hiding spots since of how open it is.
Right, it offers some limited cover, but not much. This guy would be devastating in a forest or city environment, but not in this one. But not in this one.
What I do find interesting, though, is that the terrain could work in favor of his companions. Because since this is the volcanic ice one, the ice would be both an advantage and a disadvantage to most people, because they would slide on it. So you could use it theoretically to like gain speed by sliding from things, but you could also not have as much control over how far you go when walking. But with something like a wolf, it has a claw that can dig into the ice, or an eagle, which can just fly over it.
And the bears. Since
if it's a bear,
they can break through ice.
Right,
so bears are a thing.
That it doesn't work in his favor much, but it does work with his semblance quite well.
True. He also seems like the guy who would use mobility to his advantage in a slidey type of situation, like your classic D&D ranger.
Yeah, definitely, I can see that. But I would say I would say that his weakest opponent from Galaxy may be either Emerald or Emerald or Xavier, I would say, would probably be his counter.
Xavier's the whip dude, right?
Xavier's the whip dude.
No, Blossom's the whip.
However, you mentioned Xavier.
Not.
Xavier is going to have a problem with the companion. If the wolf is straight, but however, if the Xavier would have a problem with him, because if his wolf on his trait might not be revealed, he can summon a wolf as his companion. So that would
true.
sort of that would be a boon on his part, since one particular member of Galaxy wouldn't really want to go near him unless he's able to get over his fear of wolves for that time being.
Yeah, I mean.
Right. I feel like Galaxy will definitely want to take the animal companion out as quickly as possible, because it's a huge advantage. It's basically an extra teammate.
So I'm looking at his fighting styles, and I don't know what Kenpo is, so I'm going to look that up real fast.
Oh, it's a type of Japanese.
It's okay, so it's a hand-to-hand combat style.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that perhaps it was something to do with it was one of those like bow staff fighting styles, and I was like, that could work pretty well with his weapon and bow form if he gets forced into close range and doesn't have time to switch to sword form.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
his bow is bladed anyway, even if not in specifically sword form. So.
Right. So that's what I was thinking, like, if he gets in close range, he could probably use those fighting styles in conjunction with the bladed limbs to be pretty deadly, in all honesty.
So I'm getting
criteria.
I'm getting vibes like
weapon changes depending on the range. So you would just use your fighting style to make up for areas that you might not be immediately aware of. Like for example, with Crow, we had the long range scythe, the mid range scythe, and his sword. So it would be sort of similar to that.
Right.
Long range scythe.
I feel like Lyall is also going to, well, personality-wise, I feel like he would probably lose control if any one of his allies was injured, damaged, or taken out of the fighting. So if he is not the one taken out first, it's going to make him probably less cautious, maybe even weaker. So it's something
which could
to keep an eye
definitely
on.
be used against him.
Right, it's something he'd want to keep an eye on.
Right, because of his training as well, it does kind of create an issue with the biomes that since it's not working in his favor, and it says in his sheet that he's best in forest. Well, neither of these are very forest-like, so he wouldn't have much ambush option. So he'd be forced to fight out in the open.
Well, the ice biome does have like small mountains and mounds, so they do provide some cover, but not a lot.
Right, but it'd be a challenge for him to use it as he would normally use a forest or something, since a lot of the mounds and stuff are much larger than a tree, and you can't really climb those.
Yeah, but there would also be the problem of if the leader is the one with biggest disadvantage and the leader's defeated first, then the rest of the team would possibly lose a little bit of their control over their own situation.
Right, it also kind of creates a thing where if the leader gets defeated and the leader has the biggest advantage, it's kind of disheartening to the rest of the group, so that could kind of...
morale drops.
Right, that's going to be something to keep an eye on. We're ready to move on to the next teammate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up next is Carl Aslan. And looking at his semblance is Craft. Carl has
definitely
an awesome amount of knowledge pertaining to what makes up objects and how they work. He can superheat and melt down certain materials with insane speed, and he can create weapons from scraps in 4 minutes, even creating complex things like guns and machinery, yet he's bad at the more technological stuff. I could see this being a big downfall for Team D.A.W.N.
Well, I think it depends on how it's used, really.
Yeah.
Right. If he manages to get the time, mobility, or cover to use his semblance effectively, he can create a significant obstacle that he can use on the battlefield. And probably not in the way of weapons.
Galaxy have throwing weapons that can be repurposed.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things he could probably do, at least assuming that this craft doesn't apply to just weapons and guns and stuff, he could probably create like snow boots.
Ooh.
Well,
snow boots or maybe armor, like
right, like snow boots or armor or something, and that could really change the battlefield because that adds a new element into play with his team.
Especially if there's enough that he could possibly make it for his entire team, so it wouldn't just be.
Don't forget, the biome they're on is the volcanic ice, so there isn't much to work with. I mean,
there isn't much to work with, but the man does have items on hand.
Yeah.
And if it's volcanic specifically, not the ice part, but if it's volcanic, wouldn't that mean that there's also hot rocks that if you're able to use the terrain with the craft ability, you could possibly make something like bludgeoning weapons or just something that you can use as a distraction.
Plus, we know that there's fire dust scattered around that environment,
and we know there's flaming rock because we've seen it, or not flaming, but heated rock. On top of that, he could probably use. I doubt he would be against using his weapons as materials because his fighting style is his two main ones are boxing and taekwondo, so they're both hand-to-hand fighting styles.
So that's mostly just using your own capabilities and not that of your weapon. So that
right,
means
so he probably wouldn't be against melting down his weapons to create stuff. I assume.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't see that happening.
Well, that depends. I do think his weapons are, effective.
Oh, they're definitely effective, but I don't think, at least in my personal mind, I doubt he would be against melting them down and using them if the situation needed it.
Right, assuming he could do even, create, from if he has the available materials, add-ons for his weapons, like for additional capabilities.
Give the shotgun a bayonet. Give the shotgun a bayonet. Get real close, stab, and shoot.
Sure.
Now, looking at his
put
weapons,
a blade on the put a blade on anything and it becomes more effective.
At his weapons, he has a pair of twin hammers that can become shotguns, and I feel like that his weapons are, they're good. They're not too complicated. They're, moderate to basic. But
sometimes basic can be the best option because it allows a lot of versatility in it, rather than super complex weapons with limited uses.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. They feel like they'd be more strength than speed focused.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at this.
And the shotguns are,
Shotguns could definitely be useful depending on who he's fighting. If he gets pitted up against, I don't know, someone like Xavier who has the whip, it could definitely give him a bit of an advantage, since Xavier's main weapon choice is a mostly long to medium range weapon.
Right.
So getting in close, he could just, blast Xavier in the chest.
And I did think of a possible boon that Carl could have, which is that you mentioned something before, Cadderly, which is that Lyall's semblance could act as an additional teammate. So it could cover for Carl when crafting something. So it could it could buy time that the others would need.
Right, because in his weaknesses it does say that he is in his weaknesses it does say that when creating something he's vulnerable. So the extra member from the semblance of Lyall could really help protect him. Just toss a bear in front of him.
Be able to get them the one thing that they need in order to win. A special jack of all trades ability as well. So as
use something like the eagle to go out and grab something that needs to be grabbed real fast.
Yeah.
Right, like a retrieval.
Exactly. So it definitely works well with the with his other team member Lyall. It can definitely help him in that vicinity. Now, I think the biggest detriment to him is that his aura pool isn't the greatest, as you can see when you look at his aura section. So he knows how to make this stuff, but the question is, how much can he make before his aura runs out?
True. He also seems like he could, he could give Albert a run for his money, but would ultimately lose that one-on-one if it were to happen, I think, because speed usually trumps strength in these sort of scenarios.
I feel like that really all depends on how lucky Albert gets.
Right, but even with just his fighting style and the type of weapon that he has.
Yeah,
that is true. The nunchucks are going to be much faster.
His fighting style, he doesn't use the semblance at all, just because that's how excel he is at his fighting. So,
well, I don't think either of them would really be using their semblance in the middle of an actual fight.
True.
It's not like he can. Well, what would be interesting would be if, I doubt this is the case, but it would be interesting if Carl could, if he was able to get a hold of the nunchucks, could he melt the nunchucks down? I doubt it would be the case, but if it
depends, because remember, aura can also be used to cover weapons, which serves as a layer of protection against other people's abilities.
Right, because I was going to say, if he was able to do that, that could be extremely interesting to see how that could affect battle, but I doubt it would be the case.
The thing with Albert's and his nunchucks is he has a bag full of dice to replace the heads, because the heads are detachable. So even if he did find a way to melt it down, Albert still has more ammunition. So I mean,
right. The dice are the big part of the weapon. The nunchucks are just kind of ornamentation in a way.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I wonder though. It is shown specifically in the Blake Yang and Adam fight in Volume 6 that yes, aura can defend weapons, but if you don't see it coming, you can be disarmed before you can defend your own weapon. So, for example, if the nunchucks were grabbed and thrown out of range, then it can be dealt with, and you would also be defenseless.
Which I think is
which
cool.
is also where.
Which I think is cool.
Which is also where the sorry.
Which I think is cool if they did get thrown out, because then you have Xavier's ability to retreat with his semblance. So
with the portals. True.
Yes.
I also wonder something though. How volatile or explosive do we think Carl's melting down ability is going to be? Team Galaxy uses a lot of dust, right?
Right.
So if Carl plays his cards right, he could either disable their entire arsenal very quickly or turn it against them quite drastically.
Well,
that is a good point.
Like Galaxy's dust type mostly would it be explode? It looks like Team Galaxy mostly goes based off of more gravity than any other type. So even if it did explode, the team is well versed on knowing gravity, that if it did explode and say made like a gravity pooling or made like some type of like gravity area of effect, Team D.A.W.N would not be aware, because Team D.A.W.N never
I would like
worked.
to add something.
Yeah, Team D.A.W.N never worked with gravity, so it would affect D.A.W.N completely different than it would affect Galaxy.
I have a question that could really change things up.
Yeah.
How many dice does Albert carry on him?
So he actually has a bag. So he has a bag full of dice. I mean, you can go between any 10 to 20. So I mean, it's a
okay.
range.
Imagine if Carl grabs that bag.
If he grabs the bag, Carl would be knocked out. If he grabs,
but it would deal massive damage to Albert as well.
Imagine Cordovan's mech. Imagine the arm cannon on Cordovan's mech, but smaller scale.
No, so the bag that Albert has with his dice is always protected by his aura. No matter what, the 20% is always around his bags of dice, because that's what he uses his aura on if he needs to do a dice attack. So his bag is basically.
So then it's just a matter of getting the bag away from Albert.
Well, then if the bag gets away, you have Xavier, which can just like teleport it back. So I mean, I'd say,
but
here's the thing with Xavier. Hold on. Here's the thing with Xavier. He has to focus on it. So if someone was to be, keeping Xavier's attention and making it to where he couldn't focus on the bag long enough to bring it to him, that could change the battlefield greatly, because then Carl would be able to eliminate one of the biggest things that Albert has on him.
And
we should also remember that
there's something else about the portals.
Yeah. So
there's a thing with how training exactly shown, and that is that if someone is holding the bag, how would a retrieval work? If someone is holding the bag, how would a retrieval work? Would it just, because especially if it's like a portal, if someone is holding the bag, would it bring someone directly to either Stein or the guy who's using the portals, or would it just get the bag? Because that doesn't exactly make sense.
For reference, for those of you watching at home, Stein is what we're nicknaming Albert.
Okay.
Because we neglected to mention that.
That is true. We did not mention the nickname.
Yeah, Albert's nickname is Stein, so I mean. But going to answer your question, Fate, so the way Xavier's semblance works is he can either focus on the object itself, because if you're holding something in your palm, we've seen Fiona, in Volume 7, she basically put a truck on her palm and had it pocketed away. So we know that it's possible to put portals on your palm, or to like transfer certain things. We have seen that in Volume 7.
How draining do you think using so many portals in quick succession is going to be?
So with that, Xavier is in excels at it excels a lot at the dust.
Can he pull people? Can he do crowd control?
Yes. So with his,
I think the biggest changer here would be how easy would it be to keep Xavier's focus away from what you wanted, away from the item.
Well, if you put someone such as Carl himself, which we already discussed, could be a good foil for Xavier's fighting style and weapon.
Or maybe the idea that you have to concentrate on the guy who has the animal guy who's helping him out.
True.
You have to concentrate on the thing that's a bigger overall threat that might be going after you, than possibly having, like, if you're on opposite sides of the arena from someone else, like risking your own protection just to do one thing. It's sort of like you'd have to choose what you're doing at any given time.
And with Blossom Semblance, the thing is that she can make these barriers and stuff, but doesn't she? Since it says she can manipulate hard like dust into a shield or barrier, that would mean that she needs that source to be in the location. So if she's not near Albert, she kind of can't protect him.
So that's actually false. Blossom is able to, anywhere in her peripherals or in her vision, as long as she knows what shape she wants the barrier to be, she can place it. It has a 10-meter distance that she can place it. So Blossom is the most versatile with Albert and Emerald on Team Galaxy.
So it's not really
underestimate Blossom, but Blossom can be total badass.
So based on that, it's not really manipulating hard light dust. It's just creating barriers.
Yes, of different shapes and sizes,
which is different from what her semblance says it does.
So what the hell does hard light dust have to do with anything?
Because it would make sense if it is manipulating hard light dust, like say Watts' rings in Volume 7, it would make sense how that would work since we've already seen it.
Right. Should we probably move on to the next member of Team D.A.W.N?
I feel like Carl is just like everyone's favorite.
Well, he's versatile and interesting.
It's such an interesting idea, it is. But yeah, I think we should give the other members their fair shake as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, Lily Wakefield.
Up next, we have Lily
Wakefield. It's pretty unambiguously Wakefield.
Lily Wakefield.
It was Wake, would have been
Lily Wakefield, and her weapon is a Winchester rifle with lightning dust ammo. But it also can become a
Naginata?
Naginata.
So it's basically a katana on a long pole.
Yeah.
That's what I called it. Katana with a long handle.
It's a pole arm. It's basically
katana
a pole
with a long
arm
handle.
So, but it does say in her bio that she prefers to use it in the ranged form rather than the melee one.
Right. Especially based on her fighting style and what she carries with her, because her weakness, her first weakness is close combat.
Right. So the Naginata would be a last resort.
Right. If she can't find a way to create distance.
So just like Lyall then.
Yeah, essentially.
See,
but Lyall does seem to have better skills when it comes to close combat than Lily does. True. Lily does seem to be the main long-range user here.
Yeah. However, there are other options if close combat is something that comes up. Like for example, in the accessories, it says that she has smoke bombs and a grappling hook that can be used, if possible, on ice to be able to get leverage.
That is true.
Right. Remember how Arslan was using her rope dart in Volume 3 against Team Ruby?
Right.
Slide around.
It was both a weapon and a
mobility
movement ability.
Right. So Lily's semblance basically gives her a zoom.
It's a scope.
It's basically a scope that doesn't require a scope.
Exactly.
Basically.
She can just see things.
That explains why the rifle doesn't have a scope, and it specifically mentions that.
Right. So
which is very interesting, and I actually think, and at first, whenever I first read through this, I was like, I mean, a scope would still be really useful. Now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's actually better than a scope, because with a scope, you have to make sure that it's, sighted correctly, and even the slightest miscalculation when it's sighted could just ruin everything.
So with your hand,
on the other hand,
you have to rely on your own abilities.
Right, but with the semblance, there's no need to worry about having miscalculated something or the sighting being off, because your eyes are, it's you looking at it directly. There's no miscalculations there.
Yeah, I would imagine she's, has to be good at what she does. So probably not much room for miscalculation. She has to have some incredible aim.
Right. And also with using a long range weapon, the scope on a normal rifle is only going to give you so much of a enhanced thing. So being able to just look at it directly from whatever distance this eagle eye can go out to really kind of gives an advantage, because you can see things a lot farther away than you probably could with a normal scope, allowing for shots from longer distances.
Right. Now let's go down to her.
So basically, excuse me?
No, please continue.
No, I'm just summing up that basically she's going to have probably the largest ranged advantage on the entire battlefield here.
Right, and especially with the lightning dust ammo, it says it allows the bullets to pretty much go faster, so that would mean that drop-off wouldn't be as big of an issue, because since they would be going faster, they wouldn't drop as far over longer distances, making long shots quite
there
easy.
should actually be some pretty powerful shots in and of themselves, because if you remember, Neptune's gun uses lightning rounds, and those look like they're basically plasma shots.
Right, and we saw Ruby use lightning dust against and hit Nora with it in the Tyrion fight, and it knocked Nora on her butt.
Right, as well as on the Petrificus in Volume 4.
On its own, and the electric dust on its own in that fight. It wasn't able to stop Tyrion, but it was enough power that it caused a shockwave when Nora used it back, which is the exact same amount she absorbs. So just using that as pure power, that's probably going to cause concussive damage to anything if it hits a non-aura target. So say you could use it to hit the battleground, and it could cause some people to get knocked away.
So
another thing I just thought about. With lightning dust and the ice field, let's say she just finds a nice little spot to set up in the volcanic side of things, she could shoot the ice side. And because it's ice, ice is frozen water, it could potentially, electrify the battlefield.
That's actually not true. Pure water is not conductive to electricity, only if it's got minerals in it.
Yeah.
Does most water have minerals in it?
No.
Sure, yeah. Salt water is conductive. Pure H2O is not. And neither is ice.
Salt is one of the most conductive sources on the planet. So that's why it's advised that if you're in a lake or even a pool and there's a thunderstorm going on, that's why you should get out, because you're basically in a lightning rod.
I was not aware of that. Okay, then.
The same with tap water, by the way. It's got tons of mineral in it.
Because it comes from the ground, usually.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to her.
Right. So basically, it wouldn't be much of an advantage on ice. But since this is an open environment we're talking about, with not much cover, a sniper is going to be pretty devastating if she can avoid damage herself.
Yeah.
Right. It wouldn't be a case where they could hide behind things to avoid it. But that's also a detriment to her, because she can't get much cover either.
Precisely.
And there is also the possibility that, if in the fire biome, if it does hit the ground, it could cause either debris or it could possibly spread lava around, which might be bad to her team, but it could be used as a way to scatter the opponent.
Now, that is a good point, but let's look at her fighting style, strength, and weakness, because it seems that this biome is not in her good faith according to her strength and weaknesses.
Right, she's not going to be very impressive in close quarters.
Yeah, so close combat for her is her losing streak, so...
right.
I feel like against Galaxy, I feel like her opponent would mainly be Emerald, because even though they're both good at range, I'd say Xavier I would say her main opponent would probably be Xavier, just because of the range that they both have. With her Eagle Eye and his perception of, for using the whip, I'd feel like if they did get it, I mean, I could see close combat. I could definitely see it even out as a balance for both of them, but I'd still say that this biome and field gives her a lot of disadvantages still. I mean,
True.
even with all the skills she got.
So, all right. So I'm looking at some screenshots from the Ruby versus Auburn fight, and the Ruby, both areas have spots where she could probably set up and snipe from a height advantage.
Like there are areas that have
there are some vantage points
that are higher up than the ground field. So that could work in her advantage.
Coming up for you at home watching, the field is coming up right about now.
So it could be, it could work to her advantage if she can get up, above the opponent, because that not only allows her better view of the battlefield, but also reduces the risk of hitting her own teammates.
Yeah, especially since there are I mentioned there is the ice spires, which do have spaces in between them, so those could be used for cover as well.
So this is the field that they're fighting on.
Right. It does.
The ice spires on the left could definitely be used for cover, and people can hide in between those. It would be hard to get back there because of icy flooring, but there is that possibility.
And she does have the grappling hook, which could help.
Right, that's a big added mobility advantage on the ice.
Yeah, like with the grappling hook, you could say possibly hook onto one of the ice spires and get on top of it.
Right.
We never seen that. We never seen if you're able to go on the boundaries. Because don't forget, if they go too far to the edge and get knocked out, it's...
Well, there are some ice spires that are within the boundary, it looks like.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Carl can make snow boots.
Super high up. So it would be sort of like mid-range, but it'd still be difficult to get onto... Well, it would still be difficult to get to if someone is already on it using it for leverage.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like
we can also see that
if Carl can make snow boots, that would just change the fight entirely.
Well, that would take time, but we also see that, at least in this setup, there are really zero good places to hide from sniper fire in the volcanic biome.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would already be at a disadvantage in the volcanic biome if you're not able to either hover or you are not good at dealing with heat, because in that case,
which Team Galaxy don't seem to be because they're Atlassian.
Yeah, and you'd be walking on the idea of walking on hot coals. That is literally what's happening there.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to.
So Galaxy.
That's pushing. That's pushing it. I mean, not all Atlassians are directly, are directly. Oh, heat
well, we're not.
I mean, no, that would just be ridiculous.
Well, no,
I mean,
we're not saying that, but we are saying that because Atlas is a colder environment, it would make sense for Atlassian characters to be more used to colder environments than hotter ones.
Practice outside of Atlas. That's their 2-year training. So
the big thing is that the age of these characters does kind of imply that they probably would have went around Remnant.
Yep.
At least, so they probably wouldn't be as affected as by high levels of heat as someone who's
still a student, for example.
Right, who's still a student in Atlas and hasn't really ever left.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that they could not, because we see Yang and Arlen fight directly on that lava ground, no problem at all. So, I mean, they will burn up if they touch the lava. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Right, sure, they still do have aura protection covering their bodies, so...
Right, because we do know that aura does... We do know that aura does provide temperature protection.
It does provide elemental defenses.
Yeah, so you would only be in danger if you would get to aura break, but then you'd already be out. Or the aura is just not really being used for the shield to protect you, which, for example, say you are the guy who's summoning a aura-powered animal sidekick.
Yeah.
You would basically have to have magic aura snow boots instead of real defense.
That, or he could. He's either going to not have the elemental protection that the rest of his team would, or he's going to have to stay essentially in the middle of the field to avoid the elemental stuff.
Yeah. However, if you do look at the map, it's gigantic, so there is a possibility that would work.
Right.
Right.
Definitely. Okay, now moving on to our last character before we get into more of the fighting analysis. And then Nemesis is our last character of this fight. And his weapon is Hydra's Bane, which is a
So, wait. So the last member of Team D.A.W.N, a guy called Nemesis Alceus.
Yep.
Who seems to come from a family with White Fang history. That's interesting.
Well, that won't matter, in this tournament. No matter
it doesn't really matter, but it is interesting to mention. It is interesting to kind of mention the...
Right, he's a faunus with lion ears, so he's going to have both enhanced vision and enhanced hearing. Something to keep in mind.
Right.
Now, his weapon, which is called Hydra's Bane, which is a Conda sword, it looks like it doesn't look like it's just a sword. There's nothing. Oh, and he has an LMG. Okay, that's
well. The thing with Hydra's Bane is it can have elemental properties, namely fire or gravity, which
can leave fire trails among things.
Yeah.
So it's at least not just a sword; it has other possible uses.
I can see it wielded basically similar to Adam's, actually. Mostly slashing and creating, fire trails.
Right.
So that your opponent would have to worry about something other than your immediate vicinity.
Precisely.
And I'm looking at pictures of the sword right now. Conda swords do have a sort of basket on them, on the handle. So it would be... It's fairly hard to actually, hit his hand to knock the weapon out because of the basket there.
They're also rather large.
Yeah.
Right, the weapon. So it would have a at least fair range of being able to hit them.
Right.
But then you have to think about the disadvantage too, because it's so big, how heavy it actually
Right,
is.
It would be slower than other weapons.
Plus,
True. It's going to be.
Plus, he wouldn't be able to hold the gun while holding the blade. So.
Right, he'd have to switch between the two. He can only do one at a time.
Yeah, it's like you can't exactly be like a. You can't be a Cloud Strife and have a sword that's the size of your body and swing it around like it's paperweight.
Well,
and fire off an LMG in the other hand.
Well, this is Ruby we're talking about.
No,
we can see people swinging enormous weapons in one hand.
Isn't Ruby's weapon bigger than her body?
Well, this might be Ruby,
but might be weaker.
Yeah, that might happen in Ruby, but in this tournament, I would say that would be a major flaw if he was holding both and doing everything. He would definitely get knocked out if he tried something like that. Just my opinion on it.
I feel like it would be like a big weight imbalancing if he tried to do that. This LMG was so heavy. Speaking of the LMG, I actually quite enjoy it. It's a simple LMG, fires dust ammo. I like the lion face muzzle. What's it called? Flash hider muzzle something. I don't know what it's called. I like that little touch. It's just interesting to me, and I think that could be. It could definitely be interesting. Now, one thing I do want to bring up with this weaponry is the LMG. Is probably not going to be his main weapon. It's probably going to be like if they get away from him. But looking at the Conda sword here, you could theoretically half sword this and would be quite deadly.
What do you mean?
Okay, so half swording. I'm looking at these. I think the Conda sword is a traditionally Indian weapon, somewhere around that area, Middle Eastern area.
Yeah.
But half swording is a European technique of sword fighting where you hold the weapon by the handle and about halfway down the blade with your other hand, and it allows you to block better with the blade, and it allows for more accurate thrust. So and I'm looking at this, and some Conda swords do include pointed tips or actual sharpened tips, so it could be used for that.
Yeah, doesn't Crow do that with his broadsword? Like, for example, in the Tyrion fight in Volume 4, he's using it to block Tyrion's weapon. Because he's holding the blade with his hand to give it extra advantage.
Right, it's half swording. And a fun thing about half swording is that you can use it for defense, for thrusting, or in some cases you would use both hands on the blade and you would just smack them with the crossguard.
So I would say that would be hilarious to actually watch an animation if we had animation.
It really would be.
But moving on from the weapons, we got the semblance.
I quite like the semblance.
Yeah.
And so it's essentially just a really big yell.
Oh, this is one that we need to talk about, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like Black Bolt's and
Yeah,
Bell
definitely.
level.
I feel like this also could like change the course of the battle. It could be like the A's in a hole in a way.
However, it would have to not be used unless it's absolutely necessary, or it would sort of waste the element of surprise that it definitely could provide.
Right.
Couldn't we, describe it for the
yeah,
viewers?
that's probably true.
So
the semblance...
what Royal Roar does is it grants him to amplify the sound through his aura by screaming, I guess. It does cause irreversible damage to his throat, so it is
if overused.
A verbal cry, and it only has a range of 300 centimeters. So I mean,
or 3 meters.
Yeah,
3
so
meters. So
if he can get within that 3-meter range, which he probably is because he's mostly melee, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right.
He's going to be pretty devastating, depending on what the scope of destruction this semblance can cause actually is.
Especially if he can get the whole group together, if he can get all of Team Galaxy in a small group, it could essentially... but theoretically, if he could.
Well, even theoretically, if he did, I feel like with you can block sound with aura, right?
I don't know. I don't think we've ever seen something like that done before.
Yeah, because I know that hard light dust barriers can protect attacks, but
I don't think we've ever seen it protect against a sound attack though.
Yeah, so I would.
Yeah, exactly. I
don't think we've ever even seen a sound attack other than Flint's trumpet.
Yeah,
that was more of a wind
attack.
That's
right.
Really.
No, because Yang, in that battle, Yang was just. It didn't pierce Yang. Yang was just floating in the sound waves. It blew her back, but she propelled herself through it. So as long as you have a force going...
Actually, that's wrong, because the trumpet used wind dust to create all of those shockwaves.
Oh, it did? I didn't know. I thought it was just sound. I thought it was just really loud.
But that makes sense now,
even though we haven't seen something like that, the thing that's worrying about the roar is that it's also said that it can be heard from miles away, despite it being a very limited range damaging attack.
So I think what
you have a point sonic boom that you can activate at any time.
I think what that's supposed to mean, like it can be heard from miles away, is kind of like it's damaging within that 3 meters, but outside of that you can hear it, but it's not going to hurt you. Kind of like let's say you were you were standing right beside a lightning strike and it hit the ground. The thunder from that is going to hurt because you're right next to it. But if you're miles away from it, it's not,
because electricity can travel through the ground.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. That's how we're discussing here. But if you're like miles away from it and like the next town over, you're just gonna hear it and it's not gonna do much to you. It's just gonna be like, oh, okay, that's a sound. This
must be a nod to the fact that a lion's roar can be heard like 8 miles away.
Yeah, that's what I would assume it is. It's just kind of a nod to that idea.
I would also assume that this ability doesn't just, stop being effective after the 3-meter range, but rather like recedes in strength as you get farther.
Right. It's like a what's it called? Like a
more pushback than damage.
It would like spread out.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like the Doppler effect. As it kind of goes, as you get farther away from the sound, it's not as much.
That's not what the Doppler effect is.
I don't know exactly what the Doppler effect is. I'm going to be honest with you all.
We'll get into that
the Doppler effect.
I know you can use it. I know you can use it on a trumpet to make it sound like a car is going past you, though.
Yeah, but it's more about moving towards or away from a source of sound rather than the distance itself.
Hey,
it's the thing where if you're closer to the source of
siren. It's usually described with a siren vehicle, where it's like it gets loud. Like if you are driving and a police car ambulance is coming up behind you, it gets louder and louder the closer it gets, but then as soon as it passes you, it starts receding in how loud it is.
No, that's not really how it works, and not the point right now.
Yeah. So
we can get into that later if we're curious.
We'll have a whole chat on the Doppler effect.
Carrying on.
I think this brings it down now to whether Team D.A.W.N can go against. I mean, they have everything that can like counteractivate Team Galaxy, but this would probably put it all to the test. His weakness is vulnerable to range attacks.
Right?
Yeah, range attacks and speed. That seems to be his weakness.
Yeah, Another one of those who's more strength than speed focused.
Right. So.
But the thing with this is,
so he's going to be heavily offensive and melee.
So, with Emerald, the girl with the butterfly effect, I feel like he could probably be useful against that, since it seems that the weapons, they have gravity dust in them so that they can be thrown. So if he can get close enough, he could probably give her a run for her money.
Well, she's also good at dagger too. So I mean, don't. I mean, she's been playing with daggers since.
True, but I mean, can you really use 4 daggers at once? She only has 2 hands.
Right, and if you try to do 2 daggers in each hand, that's not gonna be as effective as you would think it is. It's not like a marimba where you can use like 4 mallets in each hand and play massive wild rhymes.
But still, I mean, the way that she fights with them without throwing them is completely different. In battle, she is more in close combat. She is she's focused to the point. So
right. But another thing is that with him, if he was to go up against Emerald, she wouldn't really be able to. Her semblance wouldn't really help much.
No,
there wouldn't be much she would be able to, change around her within time.
She could probably predict the roar.
She wouldn't be able to because it doesn't account for outside interference.
Well, I mean, if she's focusing on him and like blocking his attacks, and he's touching her with every attack, then it is in her surroundings. I mean.
Yes, but it wouldn't.
It wouldn't account for his action.
Right.
Outside interference specifically means that if
choices people make,
it's another action. So if it is something that someone else has to use, and it's not guaranteed they will, that shouldn't constitute being something that can be seen with a sword effect.
True. I also think that he would be a good foil against her because. One good swing that actually connects from this guy, and most people are done.
I did think of something that could be a little bit concerning, though, is that Nemesis could actually work as a defensive measure to Lily. Since if you would, say it's the close range and the long range working together, you'd have to approach the sniper with the guy who has a close range basic sonic boom in his mouth, in order to stop the person who's trying to long range attack you. And
that is true. It could.
It's too long range.
These guys definitely do have options for team attacks and coordination if they play their cards right.
Yeah, especially so is if you have to approach the person who's trying to long range attack you, and there's a short range guy there waiting for you, you're kind of having a bad time. Because you have to get through a wall and have someone shooting at you just to get rid of the person who's shooting at you.
Right. People often underestimate the amount of cover a sniper actually provides.
Right. And that provides two different protective sources for this team. You have what's his name? Nemesis, who can protect Lily, and what's his name again? Lyall, who can protect Carl while he's making things.
So both teams, they rely on their partners. We can say that both team relies on at least one of their teammates.
Sure.
Right, but
coordination is going to be a big factor.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the breakdown between Team Galaxy and Team Dawn. The Google form voting link is down in the descriptions below. Go check it out. I will leave the link to the brackets if you want to check those out. And put your predictions. What do you think that is good of pros and cons between Galaxy and Dawn? How do you feel that they will fight in this battle? And we will be right back after the break. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we will now give our last thoughts on the overall of Galaxy versus Dawn. Who would like to start?
No, you want to start?
Break view.
Sure, I'll go first. So overall, first off, I can see a definite disadvantage in Team Galaxy in that pretty much all of them have the same characteristic flaw of overconfidence. It's going to be a risky fight on their part, and they seem to be very much high risk, high reward, pretty much all of them, especially the leader, with his randomized semblance and weapon in the matter of ranged combat.
1 second. Can you repeat
Especially
that?
if they can. Which part?
From the after you were saying Albert. The recording cut out. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fuck. Should I just start from the top?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, overall, it seems like the biggest advantage Team Galaxy has is a huge margin in experience. While these abilities, semblances, and weapons in some scenarios could provide either team with an advantage, specifically, for example, Team D.A.W.N, if they can get their sniper to higher ground on the ice biome spikes and get adequate cover for both her and Carl, right, then they could pose a significant threat since there's not that much cover on the other half of the battlefield. However, this is only one possible scenario out of many, and this is not exactly something we are looking to nitpick. We're looking at who would win in most cases. And in most cases, I would argue that all of these weapon and ability and fighting style advantages largely are capable of cancelling each other out. Therefore, what I think is the deciding factor here is experience, which Galaxy has in spades, having from 11 to 14 years of age and therefore likely also experience over Team D.A.W.N. Not to mention being, actual trained professionals even beforehand, rather than first-year students. So while I can see some wildcards being a detriment to Galaxy, and I can see some significant advantages on Team D.A.W.N's side, especially with the balance of ranged and melee combat, I do think Galaxy has the slight margin. It's going to be close. It's by no means clear-cut, but Galaxy does have my money on them with a small margin.
Okay, that is perfect. Cadderly, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. So, looking at both teams, they both have plenty of... Galaxy, they do have the experience advantage. They have a lot of different things they can do with their various semblances and weapons. However, I do believe that I will have to put my money on Team D.A.W.N for this one. Their abilities to me seem a lot more consistently effective. They don't have as much random chance played into things. The biomes don't really play much favor on either side unless, as Noble had said, they can get Lily up to higher ground. However, they do have more in ways to help each other out, with Lyall and his companion practically adding another member to the team, making it a 5v4 in most cases. And Nemesis's Roar playing playing pretty much an ace in the hole type ability into things. Carl's ability to make things could change up the battlefield significantly depending on what he makes. And overall, despite the lack of experience in the team, we do know that there have been cases in which a team of less trained people can beat a higher trained team, as we saw in the Aesop's versus Ruby fight. It comes down a lot to tactics and ability to work together. Now, while Galaxy, I'm sure, has plenty of ability to work together, their abilities are a lot less consistently effective with each other as Team D.A.W.N's is. For example, the chance effect from Albert. It's a lot of randomness in what he can actually, if it works in his favor or not. And with Emerald, it doesn't account for any outside influences to the current state of things. So,
right, but we're not bringing Volume 7. This tournament is only Volumes 1 through 6. So the fight between Ruby and the Ace Ops are not going to pertain. I mean, it's a good point.
Okay, so probably avoid name dropping things, but it's worth noting that coordination is a bigger factor than experience sometimes.
Yes.
Often.
Well, I mean, I was just name dropping that as an example of that coordination and teamwork outplays experience.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
I wasn't saying that because this happened, they can do it too. I was saying that's an example of kind of the idea I'm getting behind.
Yeah,
right,
then as an example, you could possibly use the idea of, like, for example, you could say, even though people have issues with it, the Battle of Haven. Hazel, Adam, Cinder, all of them are powerful people in their own right, but all of them were still defeated by people using their abilities while they were divided by their own purposes. That's very similar to the Aesops as a concept. With how it's if you can outsmart people who, for example, have overconfidence, then it is possible that you could use their own their flaw and put it in your favor.
Right, that was another thing I wanted to bring up. That overconfidence, I feel, is a much bigger flaw than people would give it credit for. I feel like it would kind of be able to be used against them, because since they're overconfidence normally means that they kind of come in with this kind of idea of, I'll win this. And since they're all overconfident, it would really play in the favor of Team D.A.W.N, who's probably, since they are going up against, trained huntsmen, they're probably going to be a bit more cautious and not have that sort of initial bias of them imagining them winning. So it could very easily, in my eyes, work in the favor of Team D.A.W.N, which is why I say, at least in my opinion, I think Team D.A.W.N would win this one. Granted, it would be extremely close.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. I guess I will go next, and we can end out. No, Fate, why don't you go, and then I will end us off with mine.
Okay, sure thing. I do agree with Cadderly that there is the possibility that with things, when it comes to how the teams work in their own right, Lee's just as much of a boon as it can possibly be a bane, depending on the circumstances. Especially since, as Cadderly said, the luck factor can cause just as much of a good thing as it can a bad thing, which can result in either possibility of the teams winning. I personally believe that there's a possibility that D.A.W.N could win, because they would know to, hopefully, that if they're fighting people who are older and more experienced than them, they could possibly try teaming up with their own team and learning the other's ability, since they know that that's the possibility of what they do against them. If they think about it and work on it on a tactics level, they could possibly get as much of a head start as Galaxy can against them. I'd say it depends on the situation and the specific choices that are made in the fight, as opposed to just leaving it up to luck.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and specifically, I believe that if they keep things under secret thing, like, for example, if they save the roar for a time that is specifically needed, then there's the possibility that they can have wild cards while they already know all of Galaxy's tricks. So they could work around it or try to find ways to overcome the obstacle.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. Now, I guess I will say my side is, I think I will have to agree with Noble. Galaxy does have that experience, and Galaxy does have the fortitude of, taking, reign over the battlefield. But I can also see D.A.W.N counteracting that and getting some advantages, but because D.A.W.N is still inexperienced and still in training, even though, yes, Galaxy is overconfident, they may be overconfident, but I also feel that they understand through what they went through, that their overconfidence is like adequately known to them. So when they go in, they could play off their overconfidence as a front, and I can see Galaxy like tricking Team D.A.W.N into be like, oh yeah, we're so overconfident and whatnot, and then totally blindsiding them. So I would put my vote on Galaxy, not because it's I like Galaxy. I mean, the statistics to me point out that experience and skill, which is what mostly, these tournaments are going to be based off skills, experience, and like fighting styles and weapons are going to be mostly based around. So I will have to put my money on Galaxy. For those of you listening in, thank you for getting through this entire video. But please put down who you guys think would win in the comments below. And again, make sure you subscribe, flash that bell icon, punch that bell icon. Make sure you have it on notifications to all. And we will see you all in the next fight. Adios. Everyone want to say bye?
See ya.
This is...
You know what?